for all those who were here punctually and on time. I think we should get started now. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see all of you. Welcome to our event on behalf of the Pakistani-American Collective of Texas. We're really delighted to see you here, and thank you so much for sharing part of your Saturday afternoon with us. My name is Sahar Ali. I'm one of the core team members of the Pakistani-American Collective of Texas that you all know as PACT. I'm also a writer, a mother. I have 2 elementary school aged children. The other day, my kindergartner asked me, Ammi, can princesses be brown? Of course, I reassured her, princesses come in all colors. As a Pakistani American, this election is really important to me because I want my daughter to grow up knowing that not only princesses, but vice presidents and even presidents can be brown. And indeed, I think they can be all colors. Welcome to our conversation with Wendy Davis. Wendy is a former Texas Senator. She's also running for the 21st Texas Congressional District. She also ran for governor in 2014. And one of my favorite reasons for supporting Wendy as a candidate is her nonprofit, Deeds Not Words, in which she engages young women to engage. She encourages young women to engage in politics. Over the course of the, Sadat, may I have the agenda, please? Over the course of the hour, for the next hour, we're going to hear from Wendy. Nazia Khan will be introducing shortly. Wendy will have a chance to talk to us about her policies and her priorities, and then we will get a chance to ask her some questions. That conversation is going to be moderated by Sarah Jaffrey. After that, I hope you will stick around because we have a short trivia quiz that's been put together by Maheen and Sadat, and it's a lot of fun. We would like you to perhaps have another device, maybe your phone or another laptop handy, because we'll be playing the trivia on that other device. Maheen has another short segment, which is also a sort of question. So both of those little activities will happen shortly after. Then one of my favorite parts of this event today is our introduction to Teen PACT. We have our youngest member, 13-year-old Myrene, who's going to talk to you about the plans that she has to be more politically engaged as an American, as a Pakistani American. We have a PACT overview by Maheen, and then at the end, I will just be wrapping up by thanking all our participants, all the contributors for today, and giving you a little bit of a heads up about further events. So without further ado, let me hand over to Nazia, who will introduce Wendy. Thank you.
Thank you, Sahar. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Nazia Khan, and I'm a proud mother of 2. I work part-time at a credit union, and I'm also the executive board member of Muslim Community Support Services. We moved to the US around 7 years ago because we believe that this is a land of equal opportunity for everyone, regardless of race or religion. And that's why voting in this particular election is of paramount importance to us, because we really wanted to stay that way. So who here doesn't love a good success story? Especially ones that involve ambitious, conscientious, and enterprising women who want to change the world. Because if it's one thing we women know, life may not always give us the right ingredients, but it's what we make of them, the end product, that really, really counts. As a young mother, I have always found inspiration in Wendy Davis's journey. Wendy's blazed a trail from being a teenage divorced mother waiting tables to being a Harvard Law graduate who has strived to make a difference in the often dysfunctional political spectrum of our great state. In fact, to quote Wendy herself, where you start has nothing to do with how far you go. As a straight representative, Wendy is known for her tenacity in protecting the interests of her voters and not be beholden to corporate interests. She has always watched out for the average citizens by defending funding for public education, calling for healthcare reform, and advocating for women's rights. She continues to be a role model to young women by engaging them via motivational talks and her nonprofit, as Sahar pointed out earlier on, Deeds, Not Words. I think she will bring the right mindset that we need if we wish to see a constructive change in the political climate. We need Wendy's determination. We need her determination. The woman who can stand in pink shoes and speak truth to power courageously. So, with this in mind, I ask you all to welcome Wendy Davis, who is running for Texas 21st Congressional District.
Thank you so much, Nazia and Sahar and everyone for having me today and giving me an opportunity to introduce myself to each and every one of you and to tell you a little bit more about me and hopefully to spend a much larger part of our time together listening and learning from you. As Nazia mentioned, I was first on the Fort Worth City Council and then in the Texas State Senate before moving to Austin almost 6 years ago and finding myself doing something I never imagined I would be doing, and that is running for the US Congress. I have long been a part of the fabric of trying to make change here in Texas, and I had imagined if there was going to be a political future for me, that's what it would look like. But now here I am running at the federal level because I felt called, as so many other people have in this moment, to step up and do everything I can to try to restore the democratic principles and values upon which this country was founded, but also upon which we have long operated on the world stage, and to restore our partnership with allies around the world to be a part of not only creating the peaceful world that we hope to realize, but also, of course, to be a part of making sure that we're playing our shared and responsible part in addressing climate change and so many other issues that unify us and demand that we come together to be a part of solving those problems. I am a grandmother now. I have 4 and 2-year-old granddaughters. But I started my journey as a very young mom at 19. I was a single mom who struggled in poverty, and like so many other people in this country, understand how very difficult it can be to struggle in that place and to move up and out of it. And public education and access to affordable higher education has always been so important to me, because it allowed me to be able to travel the journey that brought me here to you today. When I was in the Texas Senate, some of the things that I fought most strongly for were access to affordable higher education, but also to protect the funding for our public schools and to make sure that every student who entered the doors of our public school, regardless of their background, regardless of the language challenges they might face, regardless of whether they came from a background of socioeconomic privilege or socioeconomic poverty, that we were going to be the great equalizer with public ed. And as I find myself now running for Congress, not only does that continue to be one of the most important issues that I think we need to do a lot of work on improving, but because I live in a state and you live in a state where we recognize the challenges of not providing universal health care to everyone, that is really what motivated me to run. I also take very seriously my responsibility to the generation that my grandchildren are in, that we in my generation do our part to assure the sustainability of this planet for them and future grandchildren of theirs one day. And also that we not only make sure they go to good schools, but safe schools. And those were some of my motivating reasons for running. I will admit to you that most of the work I have done in my public service career has been centered on domestic policy. And I've had certainly a learning curve as I'm running for this office, learning about how we can be a better partner on the world stage and the role that we in the United States can play in making sure that we stabilize relationships and, of course, maintain a peaceful world order. I look forward to your questions today, and I'm honored that you invited me to be a part of this event.
Thank you, Ms. Davis, for coming and joining us this afternoon and giving us your one-on-one time. My name is Sarah Jaffrey. I'm going to be your moderator today for the question and answers. I am an attorney here in Austin. I'm the mom of 2 children. One is 2 years old, 3-year-old, and we wanted to go through a couple of rules prior to the Q&A starting. First off, please, everyone, make sure that your mics are on mute, and that if you do have any questions, please do type them into the chat window that's on the side and on the applications on Zoom. And that being said, our very first question for you, Ms. Davis, is what, if anything, are you doing in response to Governor Abbott's executive order limiting counties to 1 ballot box for mail-in voting?
Well, this is, I think, such an egregious act at such a precarious time. Obviously, our president sitting in a hospital room right now is a demonstration that COVID does not matter your station in life or who you are. And we, of course, have been trying as hard as we can to make sure that people can vote safely in this state. And that included making sure that people felt secure about mailing in their ballots. As you know, in Texas, a limited number of people are allowed to vote by mail, but the people that fall in that category are those that can be most vulnerable to COVID. Our 65 and older community, our disabled community included within that. And it was an attempt to try to create not only a safe environment for voting by mail, but also a secure one that caused so many of our counties around the state to set up multiple drive up opportunities to be able to drop a mail-in ballot off, to literally hand it to a poll worker, and to feel the security of knowing that your ballot was in the hands, assuring that it would be counted. Of course, this was in large part not only an attempt to make sure that people could safely vote, but also the growing distrust of our mail delivery system to be able to handle the influx of mail-in ballots that will likely be a part of this election cycle. Much of that purposeful, much of that through actions by the Trump administration to withdraw support and resources from the Postal Service, making this time even more challenging than it was already going to be. And so knowing that people feel a bit nervous about putting their ballot in the mail right now, many counties had set up multiple places where people could drop their ballot. It still required security, because it still required that that person comply with the same laws they would have to comply with if they showed up in person to vote, meaning that they would have to have a valid photo ID demonstrating that they personally were dropping their own ballot off and that it wasn't being collected and dropped off by someone else. So it was sort of a middle ground, not quite as available and as permissive as some other states have done, but it was a place that we were really encouraging a lot of our seniors and disabled community to feel comfortable that they could vote. With Abbott's executive order, he has constrained those drop-off centers. As I'm sure you've seen in the news, in Harris County, they went, I think, from 14 drop-off centers that were going to be made available in their county that includes multiple millions of voters to a single location. And of course, the same is true in the district that I'm running in. This district stretches from Austin to San Antonio and includes 10 counties, 8 of which go up into the Texas Hill Country to the west. And for those smaller counties, this really isn't an issue. But for San Antonio and Austin, our very populous counties here in the district, each of which had planned to have multiple locations for dropping off a mail-in ballot, it will create a real backlog and potential suppression of the vote. And that is a practice and pattern of Governor Abbott and other Republicans in Texas, unfortunately. In the time of COVID, we had pushed very hard for everyone to have the safety of being able to vote by mail. And we saw aggressive negative response to being able to do that. And we've also seen, although our governor has put a mask order in place statewide, that he specifically exempted polling locations from that mask requirement, which puts more people in a vulnerable place. Not only people who are showing up to vote, but also our poll workers, some of whom sit next to a person who refuses to wear a mask and to exercise safe precautions, not only for themselves, but for the other people around them. So I expect that this is going to be a more challenging environment even than we thought it might be. And I would just encourage everyone, please have the patience to wait in line. If you are going to vote by a mail-in ballot and you do want to drop it off personally, find out where that single location is going to be in your county. And as Michelle Obama said at the Democratic National Convention, make sure you bring a sack lunch, something to drink, be willing to wait in line in your car for someone to come and collect it from you. But please know that in Texas, no matter what county you are in, you have the right to ask a poll worker, an election worker, to come and collect your ballot from your car. Even if you aren't voting by mail, you have the right to ask them to bring a ballot out to you and to allow you to vote without coming in if you feel of particular risk in going to vote inside that location. We're doing the best we can to make sure that people understand all of these rules and how to vote safely, but also, of course, are encouraging people not to be dissuaded. And as I mentioned to my Facebook Live Town Hall audience yesterday, when I am told that I'm being denied or that an ability for me to do something is being made harder, that hurdles are being put in the way, for me, it just strengthens my resolve to make sure that I'm going to do everything I can to get over that hurdle. And it's going to be incumbent upon all of us in this election cycle, if we really want to be serious about restoring our democracy, incumbent upon all of us to make sure that we do have that resolve to be a part of making that happen.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Another question we have is with regards to the Affordable Care Act. In some ways, do you believe it can be improved?
I truly believe that we can build upon the Affordable Care Act and create a solution that works to provide affordable, accessible health care for every person in this country. And I am committed to making that happen. As you know, here in Texas, not only do we have the highest uninsured population, but that includes the highest percentage of uninsured women and highest percentage of uninsured children. And in fact, Texas has more than double now the national average rate of uninsured children. And sadly, that number continues to climb as our state Republican leaders continue to make it harder for our children to qualify for the Children's Health Insurance Program, a program that was once considered sacrosanct, that was deeply embraced by parties on both sides of the aisle, because regardless of our political differences, making sure that our children have access to health care shouldn't know a partisan line. But here we are. And that, of course, means that it's got to be one of the most important issues that we work on at the national level. And the only way states like ours, where our governor has refused to expand Medicaid, The only way we are ultimately going to be able to deliver needed healthcare is going to be through a public option. That public option should be there, whether it's Medicare or something like Medicare, to provide coverage where people cannot afford that coverage on their own. Certainly to subsidize coverage, even if a person can pay a certain portion of their medical insurance costs. And that won't just be good for individuals in our state. It's good for our economy, because a healthy workforce means that we have an opportunity to have a stronger economy. But it also is an opportunity for us to bring literally billions of dollars in healthcare funding to our state that will not only help shore up our medical care system, help hospitals keep their doors open, it also will be an economic driver, because those billions of dollars of investment will reap incredible economic rewards as they snowball in terms of what the impact of those investments look like here in our state.
So quickly, we have a couple more questions with regards to war in Iraq. It's cost us trillions of dollars, negatively impacted millions of lives, and according to a Johns Hopkins study conducted in 2006, it's cost more than 600,000 deaths at that time. Do you think that the Iraq war was a mistake? As you learn our role on the world stage, please think about how to avoid such a mistake in the future, and think about how to hold accountable for such a mistake. So what is your opinion on that?
Well, the first thing I think we must do is to restore Congress's role and authority in making decisions about whether we occupy in a military fashion another country. And the Iraq war, of course, we came to understand as more evidence unfolded, was one that misinformation was provided and decisions were made based on what were fabricated reasons for going to war there. And now here we are, hundreds of thousands of lives later, still finding ourselves embedded in a war that we never, ever should have entered. And I am committed to making sure that we are more thorough in making these decisions, and that they aren't unilaterally made at the executive office. And I'm encouraged that Congress, in a bipartisan way, has not too long ago recommitted to exactly that ideal, that this should be a decision that is made based on sound information and based on a much broader input than has been the case of late.
Another question that we have from the audience is with regards to our police department. Defunding the police may result in a reduction of the police presence in the city. Can this increase crimes in the city, which may increase street crimes, especially when Apple, Amazon, and Tesla will be bringing in more citizens to the city?
There is no question that we need criminal justice reform, but I don't think this should be an either or. I think we can have the reforms that are needed without defunding the police forces that are needed to keep us secure. What we need to make sure is that we are supporting and providing resources and tools to the many, many, many good police officers that work on police forces across the state and across this country. But it also means that we have to be able to remove bad police officers when we know that we have one on our police force. Qualified immunity has been a tool that has been used to remove the ability of city councils and police chiefs, for example, to be able to expeditiously remove a bad acting police officer from his or her duties. I was, as I said previously, on the Fort Worth City Council for 9 years, and I worked very directly and closely with neighborhood police officers on a neighborhood policing model that worked beautifully in our community. But I also sat in some executive sessions where it became known to us that we had problems with certain officers on our police force, and we had very little power to do anything about it. So ending that qualified immunity is extremely important. And making sure that, just as should be the case, regardless of what government entity we're talking about, if you are a public-facing entity, having bias, racial bias sensitivity training, understanding as a police officer or other security officer, de-escalation tactics and how to best utilize those tactics, ending things like chokeholds and no-knock warrants and hooding that have resulted in the disproportionate deaths, particularly of Black Americans, and making sure that we are being aggressive about expecting the changes that should be demanded of police forces to assure that regardless of the color of your skin, you are going to be treated fairly in our criminal justice system. And then finally, I want to say a word about bail reform and the very real need for that. Because so often what we find is that people who are sitting in jails in the state and around this country are there not because they've yet been found guilty of a crime, but because they've been accused and don't have the financial wherewithal to leave the jail while they await their due process trial. And we find a situation where, based on the amount of money you have in the bank, you either find yourself incarcerated or with the capacity not to be while you await trial. I think all of these issues deserve a bipartisan focus. And it doesn't mean just working from the top down and making these decisions. It means working with racial justice groups in our communities. It means working with our police forces in our communities. Everyone at the table coming to the best solutions to make sure that going forward, we can have safe communities and we can provide resources needed to our police departments, while at the same time moving off of their plate some of the things that make sense to be dealt with elsewhere, like how we deal with our homeless community, or how we deal with people who are suffering from mental health issues or drug addiction, and assuring that the safety of our community is being provided by a multi-layered approach that finds the most appropriate way of dealing with situations at hand.
And that question was posed by a participant, A. Bari. Another question by Kamran Durrani is, with regards to the Republicans trying to push the Supreme Court justice through before elections, even in the lame duck session, do you think if Joe Biden wins and Democrats take control of the Senate, that he should pack the court?
You know, I think I'm a lawyer. I think you said that you're a lawyer as well, Sarah. And as a law student, I learned a great love of the law and a much greater and deeper understanding and appreciation for the three-legged stool upon which our founders built this democracy. That three-legged stool was created specifically so that we could counterbalance when any other leg of the stool became less democratic than we hope it would be, less fair, less equitable. My great understanding and appreciation for the law as a student was that it seemed to me that the courts had always provided that counterbalance, where sometimes a legislative or executive branch was one that wasn't really reflecting particularly a minority suppressed voice in this country. Our courts led the way on making sure that civil rights were assured, for example, that all students, regardless of the color of their skin, could get an equal education, that we could marry who we chose to marry, regardless of the color of our skin. And it was always that counterbalance that courts provided to the legislative and executive branch that I felt has kept us level all these years. Now what it looks like is that we are going to have to really expend the kind of energy and effort in legislative and executive rebalancing of that stool that is likely going to be needed, because I think we are going to see an imbalance now in our court system. Here in Texas, we've felt that imbalance for some time. with political appointment of just judges at the appellate and the district court levels that have kept Texas from being able to challenge appropriately, just to name one example, voter suppression efforts in our state. And it's the leveling force that the legislature can provide to correct that. I believe in that leveling force, and I want to see that leveling force happen through legislation and through the election of a Democratic president. I think we have an opportunity, a very real opportunity, to have a Democratic Senate, a Democratic House, and a Democratic White House. And we can provide, through those two other legs of the stool, the leveling force that will be needed.
Thank you. So we've got a follow-up question with regards to the ballot question we had first. From the audience, Awesome Thareen had, could you please expand on how voters ask the poll workers to bring the ballot paper to their car? Do they go inside and ask the poll workers, or would there be people outside to bring it to them to their car?
Excuse me, there should be a way to, and I'm so glad you asked this question, because it reminds me, we need to make sure we're making people fully aware of how to do this. There should be a phone number that you can call to your elections administrator requesting the ability to do this, and they can direct you to a polling location where that can happen. The good news now, of course, in our counties, and this certainly wasn't always the case, is that you can vote anywhere on election day, even if it's not your home county jurisdiction. And so call your elections administrative office, tell them that you want to be able to request that a ballot be brought out to your car, and they will give you the location or locations where you can make sure that that happens. I think it is the case, but I don't want to misspeak on this. And so let me follow up and get a better answer to you. I think it is the case that regardless of the polling location that you go to, you can request that someone come out to your car. And I don't know how that works exactly. And that's why I want to make sure I get good follow-up information to you. It's probably the case that you could ask someone to go in for you and have an election worker come out with a ballot for you. You do, of course, have to have your valid photo ID in order to vote that way. So make sure that even if you're planning to utilize that resource on election day or during early vote, that you have it. And if you are hoping to vote in that manner, please, please, please early vote. That way, if there's any problem that you can confront and you have to come back on another day to deal with it, you'll have that other day to come back and be able to deal with whatever problem may have arisen. And I think that's true regardless of how we hope to vote. If we go vote at an early voting location and any problem occurs, we at least have an opportunity to try to remedy that and come back and be able to legally and appropriately vote. And if we wait until election day and a problem arises, that creates a great challenge for us to be able to resolve it on that same day.
The next question is twofold, and it's from an audience member, Tariq Masood. Would you support new legislation to reduce the disproportional influence and at times monopoly of big tech such as Amazon, Google, Facebook, Apple? And then the second part is, how can we enable a more level playing field for smaller emerging companies?
So the answer is yes, absolutely. I think that Congress must very seriously consider breaking up these monopolies. And we all understand that not only is this an important issue from a consumer perspective, it's also an important issue from an information perspective, and making sure that we have the ability, as we do with other means of communication, to regulate that communication. It's incredibly important that we do it. We've all, of course, seen in COVID, particularly, how those who are a part of companies like that are actually increasing their wealth exponentially, while most workers, and so many right here in Texas, are facing dire economic challenges as a consequence of COVID. And it threatens to make the divide even greater for our small retailers And the online giants, excuse me, like Amazon, when we confront a moment like this. It's also, of course, tremendously inequitable that a company as large as Amazon can go without paying taxes when our small retail storefronts do have to pay their fair share. That inequity is something that I take very seriously. One of the things that I pushed for when I was on the Fort Worth City Council was making sure that we had a level playing field for the collection of sales taxes, for example, so that if you were a mom and pop store that had to charge sales tax on a good, you couldn't be beaten out in price and essentially put out of business by someone who could sell a piece of that same merchandise to you without charging sales tax through an internet sale. So all of these, so many different layers to this, and so many issues that demand our energy and our focus and our hard work to get to the kinds of solutions that our small businesses deserve. I'm committed to being a part of that. I have so much to learn. And I know I have so much to learn, and I'm an eager learner to make sure that I am a part of helping to find the right solutions to the many challenges that are faced by virtue of these large monopolistic companies right now.
So one last question from the audience member, Sumaya Malik. When California versus Texas lawsuits has its preliminary hearing in Supreme Court on November 10th, do you think it is already too late to stop the demise of Affordable Care Act? And what can we do as citizens of Texas to stop such lawsuits from leaving Texas? After all, it started in Texas.
It's so disappointing to me that the genesis of this suit began in Texas, and actually the genesis of the thinking on this, one of the very architects of this was the person I'm running against, Congressman Chip Roy, when he was at the right-wing think tank, the Texas Public Policy Foundation. For many years, they and others have been working on decimating the Affordable Care Act and destroying it simply because it was a signature and landmark piece of the Obama administration. But also from a deeper place of concern for me, the idea that the government shouldn't play any role in the provision of healthcare. And people like my opponent who believe that we should privatize Medicare, we should end or privatize Medicaid, and that we should enact what he and others refer to as healthcare freedom as the replacement, which basically is a plan that suggests that you're on your own. You need to create your own healthcare savings account. You need to take care of your own healthcare needs. I can just tell you, from a person who struggled in poverty as a single mom, I couldn't have afforded a flat tire on my car. And I did have those moments where a flat tire would literally throw me into a financial tailspin. And I understand that so many of us don't have the luxury of being able to provide for ourselves, particularly when it comes to the expensive arena of healthcare. So yes, we face this decision that will be heard a week after the national election on November 3rd. The Supreme Court will take up the case that started in Texas to destroy the Affordable Care Act with absolutely no replacement being offered by Republicans who currently hold office. And who knows what will happen, but we must be ready with a solution. And that means we must have a Congress, a Senate, a House, and a White House that are comprised of people who are serious about making sure that we are going to have a government solution to what we believe is a human right to access healthcare in this country. And I think it just makes the stakes in this election higher than ever, that the possibility exists that we may, even if we don't see a complete ending to the Affordable Care Act, a decimation of it that will require a great deal of effort and energy on our part to rebuild the safety net of healthcare that is provided for millions of Americans.
Okay, and at this point, Ms. Davis, I'm going to put the stage back on your spotlight and give us some quick closing remarks for our audience today.
Again, thank you so much for having me today and giving me an opportunity to tell you a little bit more about my platform and about myself. I would be honored, of course, if you live in my district, to receive your support in this race. And I commit to you, as I have always done, that if I am elected to Congress, regardless of whether you voted for me and regardless of your party, I'm going to fight for you. And I'm going to make sure that you have a voice that will listen to you, that will show up at your community gatherings and hear your concerns, that will learn from you, and will be a voice that will fight for you if I have the privilege of serving this community. Thank you again so much for having me.
Thank you for your time. And now we'll have our trivia section.
Thank you, Wendy, for those addressing all the issues for the Pakistani-American community here in Austin. We're privileged to have you, to share the screen with you today. All right, moving on. My name is Maheen Bakai, and I'm a realtor by profession. And I'm involved in the Citizens Foundation, and which helps educate underprivileged children of Pakistan. I'm also a member of the PACT, and I am involved in the Muslim Women for Biden. I am involved in all these organizations, and I try to do as much as I can because I was raised by parents who taught me to stand up for what is right. And I personally want to leave behind a legacy of a Pakistani-American woman who is not complicit about the issues that are important to our community. So having said that, let's start to have some fun today, people. For this trivia game, we're going to require another phone or a tablet or an iPad. Please pull those out and enter into your browser menti.com, MENTI.com. And I'll give you all 30 seconds to do that while some people pull out their phones. And then after you've done that, you will see Mentimeter written on the screen. Make sure you enter the code 3425586. Again, it's 3425586. And I think we have about 13 people who've joined. We're going to wait for maybe a few more people to join in, and I will see if I can do some. Hang on. Let's see. Okay, let's see. We have 18 people right now. All right. Now we should be good. I think let's start. Question number 1.
Hi, everyone. I'm Agent Reed.
In the United States, what determines the winner of a presidential election? Popular vote, electoral college, campaign contributions. Make sure you answer fast to get more points, okay? Time's up. Wow, 15 people got it right. That's pretty impressive. It seems like everybody's very well informed. That's awesome. Now let's go look at the leaderboard to see who got it right. Oh, wow. Let's see. Oh my, the fastest was Shamir. Shamir, you won the first question. That's awesome. Good job. Now moving on to the next question. Question number 2. Remember to answer fast to get more points, the faster you are. How many electoral college votes does Texas get? Make sure you look at your phone quickly. 18, 38, or 58? I had to look up this answer, so don't feel bad if you don't know the answer. I had to Google it myself. Okay, time's up. 11 people got it right. Wow, we have a very smart audience here today. That's pretty impressive. Now let's go look at the leaderboard to see who got this one correct the fastest. Let's see. Oh my God, Shamir, you seem to be the winner today. Well, the second question, there's still 2 more to go. Let's see, now we'll move on to the third question. Remember, the faster you answer, the more points you get. When does early voting begin in Texas? Quickly look at your phones, October 13th, October 27th, or November 3rd. Okay, time's up. Oh, wow. So 17 people got this right. That's amazing. Good. Now everybody make sure you go out on October 13th and vote early. That's my plan too. So let's see who got it. Let's see, leaderboard, come on. And Asim Tareen was the fastest, but Kamran won with 2,795 points. So I guess that's pretty amazing. We have Shamir and no, actually WD, whoever that is tied with Kamran. That's pretty impressive. All right, one more question after this. Question 4. What percentage of eligible Pakistani voters actually voted in the 2016 election? Now, this is a pretty impressive statistic. Let's see who gets it right. 30%, 50%, or 75%? Time's up. Yes, 50%. It's a very grim fact, but yes, it is true. 50% voted. So let's not repeat that mistake again. Let's go out and vote. Let's make that 100%. And let's see who got this right. And Myrene is the winner for this competition. Okay, and the second place is Tariq K. So Tariq Khan, I believe. That's awesome. We have very good prizes for both of you. And the prizes are t-shirts from Wise Up Texas. They have the lettering. Maybe we can share the screen of the prize. It is a cool t-shirt that says, if you don't vote, log kya kahenge? And I think that's pretty applicable to everyone here. We can all relate to log kya kahenge? Yeah, so that's awesome. Okay, now one more thing before you all put away your phones. We have a little careabouts that we want to do a little survey. It's a 30-second survey. I would like for all of you to participate, please, and enter your, make sure you rank. There are 9 listed items in there, issues that affect all of us. I want all of you to go on your phone and list them in the order of importance to you. So like, let's say healthcare is number 1 on your list, you put it as first, or if law and order is number 2, then you put it at number 2, and so on. So please go ahead and take those 30 seconds and enter as many as you can and rank them. And then we'll show you the results here today. So that will be pretty exciting to see what is the most important issue for us Pakistani Americans here. Oh, okay. So there's only 2 people. Okay, so on the screen on the right side, I can see on the bottom right, there's only 3 people that have actually entered the, okay, it's going up slowly. So we'll wait for most people to enter, and then we'll see which one is the most important. Let's wait a few more seconds. Come on, people, quickly rank. All right, one more. Let's do 5 more seconds, and then we'll call it.
It is a long list to get through.
It is. I agree. So here we go. I think almost everybody has entered, and healthcare is number 1, and economy is number 2, US Supreme Court number 3, and so on and so forth. So yes, thank you very much for sharing this information with us that we've gathered. Now I'll basically, we'll use it to, plan our future events around it, and because we now know which issues are important. So thank you very much for taking the time to play the trivia and to rank these issues. Now I will hand it over to our youngest participant in our event, Myrene Malik. She's pretty fabulous, so you won't want to miss her presentation.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Myrene Malik. I'm 13 years old. I live in Austin, Texas, and I am leading the Teen PACT organization. So I believe that this group is important because I believe that no matter who you are, no matter how old you are, where you come from, politics affects you in one way or another. So I think that's important that we as Pakistani-American teenagers understand that we are capable of making a difference. Next slide, please. So initially when I was developing the idea for this organization, I thought that my mission statement would simply be something along the lines of getting Pakistani-American teenagers more politically involved, help them learn more about politics, stuff like that. But as I developed this idea a little bit more, I realized that our organization should also focus on creating bonds within the organization within the organization with each other, with other Pakistani-American teenagers. So together we can work on creating a change that will affect so many more people beyond us. Next slide, please. So goals, plans, and what I want success to look like in the future. So one of my biggest goals for this organization is to kind of promote an idea of love and tolerance, because most likely in this organization, you're going to find people that don't have the same exact political views of you, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you just push them away. Instead, you guys can come to we can come to a certain understanding of each other, why each person thinks that way, and understand that no matter what your view is on political things, that we're all working towards the goal of creating a better America. Another goal of mine is to encourage people to take action. So most teenagers, they want to change the world in one way or another. The only problem is that they don't know how to do it. So Teen PACT is a great way for people to get involved with their community and to get involved in issues that they find that they want to get involved in. Another one of my ideas of success is to eventually become the leading influence in the Pakistani-American community. So let's say that there's an election coming up, and then some people, they don't know who to vote for. Then they can come look at Teen PACT and see who we support, and that will influence who they eventually decide to support. One of my other goals is to eventually start hosting large fundraising events to fundraise for either political issues or to fundraise for certain campaigns that we support. So if you want to learn more, I have actually detailed plans. So if you would like to learn more about my plans for Teen PACT, you can email me at myreneMalik@gmail.com. Next slide, please. So tomorrow we're actually hosting our first ever event, which is very exciting. So it's going to be through Zoom, and it's a phone banking event. If you're not familiar with phone banking, it's basically where you make a bunch of phone calls advocating for a certain cause. So we will be making phone calls on behalf of Teen PACT to reach out to people, to remind them to vote, and to share our point of view with them. So most of the time, when you make these phone calls, you're going to get people that say that they don't know who to vote for. So this is a great opportunity to get your point of view out in the world and to express why you support the politicians you support. There will be a short training session at the beginning of the Zoom if you've never filmed before, so you don't have to worry about having like past experience or anything. Anyone with any level of experience is welcome. It's tomorrow 1 to 2:30 p.m. It's tomorrow 1 to 2:30 p.m. If you want to join, please fill out this form that I just put in the chat. And if you want your teenagers to join, they can also fill out this form. So in the future, we're going to be having events similar to we're going to have events in the future similar to this and different types of activities in the future. So if you want your teen to be involved, please contact me at myreenmalik@gmail.com so I can share with them more details. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and I hope that I will be able to see some of you guys tomorrow at the phone bank.
Thank you, Myreen. Your leadership and political vision at your tender age is an inspiration to us all. Truly is. All right, so now we're going to move on to the PACT overview. We want to show you why we are doing what we are doing. Just look at the screen that is on your computers to see what these numbers, they speak to you. I mean, there's 700,000 Pakistani Americans in the US. And then 300,000 are the number of Pakistani Americans that are registered to vote, which means less than half of us are registered to vote. And 50% of eligible Pakistani American voters that actually voted in 2016. So this is all very good information that we can use to move forward with our vision. So let me tell you a little bit more about PACT and why PACT is necessary. Did you know that the national statistics show that 46% of eligible voters didn't vote in 2016? And of course, like you saw on the screen, that the same number reflects the grim reality among the Pakistani Americans. So let's make this election the one to turn 2016 regret into 2020 action. We know that most of you here are registered, have voted before, and will vote again and again. But we also know that we are not enough. Please, let's help get the Pakistani-American vote out for this very consequential election. Texas is considered a battleground state. There are more than 70,000 Pakistani-Americans in Texas, and every vote counts. Can we count on everyone here today to reach out to eligible voters within our communities? Let's make sure that they're registered. Let's encourage them to go out and vote. This is not an election that any one of us can afford to sit out. After we are done today, can we go through our contacts, make a list of our children's friends' children, our cousins, nephews, and nieces, all those young people who are in their 18 to 21 age bracket? Can we count on you to reach out to at least 3 young Pakistani Americans you know and convince them to vote? As immigrants, we want equal rights. As parents, we want quality education and healthcare for our families. We want sensible gun laws so we can feel safe in our homes and in our public places. And we want future generations of Pakistani Americans to inherit a cleaner environment. So in a short span of 1 year, our advocacy group has realized that we need to step up to formalize PACT into a platform that Pakistani Americans in Texas can use to promote political engagement and support issues that are important to our community. We want to get to know our city, county, state, and federal representatives, and we want them to get to know us. As Margaret Mead, an American anthropologist, once said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." Now I'll hand it over to Sahar for her closing remarks and to tell us about our next event.
Thank you, Thank you, Maheen, for those for those remarks, the closing remarks, and thank you for those statistics, which remind us that we have our work cut out for us, don't we? We're going a little over time. Thank you for all of you for sticking around. I just want to go over some of these slides. We have our next event coming up in just 1 week. We're going to meet some of the Texas House representatives who are our voice in Texas. The details are up on your screen. Please mark your calendars, and I hope to see lots of you there. And if you can, please bring a friend so we can have more of Pakistani Americans interacting with these representatives. Next slide, please, Sadat. Last but not least, we wanted to, if you haven't contributed yet to Wendy's campaign, this is the link that you can use, and we'd be happy to see lots of donations, contributions coming up there. Next slide. Get out the vote. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get out the Pakistani vote. These are some deadlines, some important dates that we all need to keep in mind. The voter registration deadline is on Monday, October 5th. That's just coming up in 2 days. Early voting starts on Tuesday, the 13th of October. So let's mark our calendars definitely for those 2 dates. I'm sure all of you are registered, but try and register a few more that may not be, the young people that Maheen talked about. And let's try and get out the vote and vote early so that we don't have a backlog or crowds that we want to avoid on election day itself. Thank you so much. These are our links for our Facebook, these are, what happened here? Sadat? Our contributors for today, thank you so much for all of these wonderful people for having contributed to Wendy's campaign. And I'm sure there will be more contributions coming in the next few hours or days. Thank you so much to all of you. And finally, we'd love to have more people join PACT. We are a platform that would like to see more Pakistanis represented here. We are here for you. So we have a Facebook presence. We are on Twitter. We are on Instagram. Here are our coordinates for all of those social media platforms. We would love to have you join our ranks and help us in this important task. Remember, it doesn't end with the election. It doesn't end with you voting. That's where it starts. So let's take that first step, get out there and vote. And then beyond that, let's continue to be engaged with the people that we elect to our counties, to our Senate, to our Congress, all of those various platforms where we will be electing representatives from Texas. Thank you so much for being with us, and we hope to see you next Saturday. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you so much, Wendy.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody.
Thank you all so much for having me. Take care.